Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about the goal tracking process and a couple of the reports that will generate for you. Now, if you're subscribed to Milligan School Data's surveys, you'll do a number of surveys. You'll do teachers and classified staff and parents and students, and you'll get really just a ton of information around the results of that. This is just an example of some of the one of the reports that you'll get from the teacher survey. And you can see that there's a lot of information here. So it tells you for every single question where you had people answering disagree, where people were strongly agree and agree. But one of the difficult things you're going to run into is how do you determine which of these questions you want to focus on and try to improve for the next year. Clearly, you can't focus on every single one of them, so there has to be a way to kind of narrow that down into just a few questions. And so I'm going to go through a mock process of selecting those questions. I imagine your process will look a lot different. You'll consider the open-ended feedback. You'll talk to your school board. You'll get some feedback from teachers and parents and such. But I'm going to look at one of the reports. The first place I go to look at prioritizing which questions to focus on is this questions by rank report. So for the teacher survey for this school in 2023-2024, you can see this report says that there were 35 surveys done, and this school for the question, the school schedule allows adequate time for teacher preparation, their score of 0.636 was higher than every other school who did the survey. So they're doing very well on this one. This one down here, the administrative support staff does a good job. They were higher than almost every other school that did this. So clearly they don't need to be working on those. Where you want to look on this report is really down at the bottom, and you can see that there's a couple of questions here that stand out. So rules in this school are made clear to students. This school had a score of negative 0.091, which put them at 29th out of 35, which is to say that there were 28 schools that did better than them on this particular question. So this is a good place to start. This is a question that you're going to focus on for improving next year. And then we'll look at this one as well. Discipline at this school is fair with a score of negative 0.182. Which puts it 28th out of 35. These two are in the bottom quartile. And so those are great candidates for questions that you want to focus on. And so I'm going to look at the parent survey next. So this was done at the roughly the same time in the same year. You can see that these are the questions they did very well on. We're going to scroll to the bottom and see that at the bottom, discipline at the school is consistent and fair. The school had a score of negative 0.083, puts them 12th out of 23. And while that's not terrible, that puts them at about average, about the 50th percentile. The fact that discipline came up in the teacher survey and came up in the parent survey, I think that's the beginnings of a pattern. And so I'm going to pick this one for this school as well. Discipline at the school is consistent and fair from the parent survey as another question that they're going to focus on the following year and try to improve. So that we'll have this question as well. I'm going to look at the student survey now, and because there was a pattern and that discipline came up in both the parent and the teacher survey, I'm going to see if I can find that same question here. And there is a question about discipline on the student survey that says teachers apply discipline to all students equally, and this score of negative 0.167 put them 3rd out of 21. And so this isn't a bad score. This actually puts them in the top quartile, but since we're focusing on discipline and there will probably be interventions on communication about discipline and things like that, I think this is a reasonable question to add to your goal tracking as well. I want to see if the things that we implement in those other areas will impact this discipline question here. And so we'll add this teachers apply discipline to all students equally from the student survey as well. I'm going to scroll to the bottom real quick, and nothing really jumps out at me here that I deserve the grades I get in my class and participation in extracurricular activities. Those are the two lowest, but just looking at this, I think we'll focus on the discipline aspect of that. right there. And so, like I said, this is a really oversimplified example of how to pick questions to focus on, but that's what we'll focus on right there. Obviously, the last survey that we'll look at is this classified staff survey, which again was done at roughly the same time. We'll scroll to the bottom here, and you can see here that there's really a pretty blatant pattern emerging here. My supervisor communicates effectively. This was lower than every other school that did the survey. My supervisor backs me up where I need it. Was again 24th out of 24. My supervisor 24. I feel respected by school administration, also 24th out of 24. But then here's this other one. I feel that I can approach my supervisor with concerns, issues, or ideas. So since that pattern of the supervisor is really coming up in some of the bottom ones, I'm going to pick these 4 here. I feel that I can approach my supervisor. I'll skip this respected by school administration just because we've got those others to focus on. My supervisor holds himself to the same high expectations as others. My supervisor backs me up. My supervisor communicates. So like I said, this is oversimplified, but that's what we'll pick right here to focus on. And we'll pick these as the goals for our school to work on in the next year. And of course, the next question you're going to want to ask is, looking at this, rules in this school are made clear to students. Here's this score of negative 0.091, which is clearly low, but what's a reasonable score to shoot for? And that's where you look at the report here called the survey average. And what this shows you, just really quickly, is that your school is, for this question, the building I mostly work in is clean, scored a 0.273. And that's this bar right here in this circle. If you look at all of the schools who took the survey, this average score across all of those schools is 0.039, and that's this blue diamond right here. And so you can see where your school compares, and then how far off is it from what is average for all those schools. So we're going to look down for that discipline is fair at this school on the teacher survey. And here it is right here. So here's that score of negative 0.182. The average across all surveys is 0.059. And so that's a good place to start, is 0.059 would be average. But you can see right here that there's not actually a whole lot of difference between these two spots. So I'm actually going to pick a goal of 0.1. I'll just round that up to 0.1. So that's how I'm going to pick my goal there. For discipline at this school is fair. We'll say that the goal for next year will be this score right here will be a 0.1, a positive 0.1. And I'm going to look at the same thing here. Rules in this school are made clear to students. Our score was negative 0.091. The average across all surveys was 0.163. Again, it's not a huge jump between where we are and where we want to be, so I'm just going to round that up to 0.2. And so our goal for this question for next year is going to be 0.2. And we'll just really quickly kind of go through that same process here for those others. Here's the parent survey, and we're going to find that discipline is fair question right here. And you can see that this survey was negative 0.083. The average, which is actually even a little bit lower than our score, is negative 0.110. And so we're going to pick something higher than where we were, and I'm just going to kind of pick 0.1. So that's going to be a reasonable, looking at this and where the average is. Next year, we want our negative 0.083 to be 0.1. Do the same thing over at the student survey. We're going to look at teachers apply discipline equally, which is going to be right here. Pardon me, where did that go? Teachers apply discipline to all students equally. Again, our score was actually higher than the average, and so we're going to pick kind of an arbitrary, just 0.1. We're gonna say that we want this to negative 0.167 to go up, and we'll say that we want it to be a positive 0.1. And then finally, we'll look at the classified staff survey. We can scroll down to the supervisors here. I'm looking at my supervisor communicates effectively with the classified staff under him or her. This score right here is negative 0.4. The average across all schools is 0.156. And kind of looking at that, I would say that would be a really huge jump to go from negative 0.4 to positive 0.156. And so I'm going to set a goal of negative 0.1. It's important to know that your goal can be literally anything. It can be a negative number. I would encourage you to kind of see what would be reasonable. You can do these interventions over year, and so it doesn't have to be all the way to the average. And this is a good example of that. And then looking at my supervisor backs me up when I need it. I've got negative 0.2 for this school survey. The average for across all schools is positive 0.346. And again, I think that's a pretty big jump, so I'm not going to go all the way to the average, and I'm just going to say that our goal is positive 0.1. Same thing with supervisor holds him or herself to the same high expectations as others. Very similar scores, so we'll go to positive 0.1 as our goal for this. And then I feel that I can approach my supervisor with concerns, issues, or ideas. Our score this year was 0. The average is 0.337. And again, I think a reasonable goal would be just positive 0.3, which is really close to the average there. So that's how I'm going to go about selecting my goals. And what do you do with that information once you have it is you would just send me that information. You would send me an email that says, hey, Adam, here are our goals for the teacher. Here's the questions and where we want our goals to be. For the parent, discipline is fair, where we want our goal to be, et cetera, and just kind of give me that information. And what I'll do with that is I'll be able to create a report for you that documents all of those goals and which questions you're focusing on and what you want your scores to be the following year. So this is a report that you'll get, read point gold tracking for the 23-24 survey. So rules in this school are made clear to students. That was one that we picked. Our baseline score was negative 0.091, and that's represented by this bar here. And then we decided that we wanted the goal to be 0.2, which is this dotted line here. And so you can see that so far, obviously, they haven't done the next year's survey yet. So it says pending result right there. And you can kind of go through each of these questions here. Discipline at the school is fair. Our baseline score was negative 0.182, which is the score we got in 23-24. Our goal is 0.1, and you can kind of see that going through all of these different questions here. And this is a document that you can give to your school board. You can put in your comprehensive needs assessment or your strategic plan, and it really does spell out exactly what you're going to be working on in the upcoming year. And then what you'll get the following year is when you take these same surveys, I'll be able to give you a report that shows you how you did. So I'm going to skip over to this report here, which is from the previous year. So these are the goals that this particular school made in 22-23, and we're looking at the scores they got in 23-24 to see whether they met them. So here's that information here. Discipline at this school is fair. Their baseline, so the score they got in 22-23 was negative 0.364. They set a goal of 0.1, which is that dotted line here, and their actual score from 23-24 was negative 0.182. And you can see that they did not meet the goal, and so it says goal not met. Here's another example. My administrator follows through on commitments. Their baseline score was 0. And then their score the following year was 0.455. They had a target of 0.25, which is that dotted line here. And you can see clearly that they met that goal. And then you can see through all of these whether they met the goals or not. And again, this is a document that you can share with your school board. You can share it with your parents. You can put it in newsletters or whatever you want to do with that information there. And so this is a service that we provide to allow you to track these goals from year to year and see how you're doing. So If you have any questions about these reports or this process, or really any of the reports that we have, please reach out to me directly at milliganschooldata.com or milliganschooldata@gmail.com. Thank you.